It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. A nightclub fire claims the lives of 59 people in North Macedonia. An initial investigation says pyrotechnics inside the building most likely caused the fire. The Health Secretary refuses to say whether the government will pull back on plans to freeze some disability payments, but says the current system is unsustainable. Newcastle United win their first major football trophy for 70 years after beating Liverpool 2-1 at Wembley in the Carabao Cup final.
And it's an electric atmosphere here on the streets of Newcastle tonight. They are Carabao Cup champions, a hugely important win for the club and its fans who are out to party.
Also on the programme tonight, Pope Francis is seen for the first time in a month as the Vatican releases a new photograph of him celebrating Mass in hospital. A new crew arrives at the International Space Station, allowing 2 stranded astronauts to return to Earth after 9 months in orbit. Plus, a special report from the Falklands as we gauge reaction of islanders to shifting defence priorities thousands of miles away in Europe. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30. Hello, good evening. 59 people, many of them teenagers, lost their lives today when a fire broke out inside a nightclub in North Macedonia. More than 150 people were injured. 18 of them are in a critical condition. An initial investigation suggests it broke out after pyrotechnics being used inside the building set the roof on fire. Well, the tragedy happened in the eastern town of Kashani, which is about 60 miles from the capital, Skopje. The country's interior minister said the club did not have a valid licence. 20 people have been arrested in connection with the incident. Our correspondent, Paul Kelso, has this report.
In a nightclub in Kashani, local stars DNK perform accompanied by pyrotechnics. But as they play, the roof can be seen catching fire. The band apparently briefly unaware, even as the crowd notice the disaster unfolding above their heads. As the flames take hold, the crew attempt to put them out with a fire extinguisher. The band urging the crowd, go outside, go outside. Faster, faster, he says, as flames and panic spread through the club. The fire engulfed the Pulse nightclub around 3 a.m. on Sunday. Emergency services rushing to the scene in the small town. More than 50 people were killed and at least 155 injured, many of them reported to be children. With local hospitals overwhelmed, survivors were rushed 60 miles to the capital of Skopje.
The fire started and everybody started shouting to get out. 1,500 people can't get out that fast. Some even tried to get out through the toilet to find some bars on the windows, but some people suffocated there. Some people stayed in the disco and they couldn't get them out. I somehow managed. I fell down the stairs and they ran over me, trampled me. I barely stayed alive and could barely breathe. I got out at the end, but I lost my sister.
It's my only child and he died. What am I supposed to do? Local officials should be hurt in the same way that I'm hurt. I've been there all night. They can't even get the bodies out. They can't pull them out. There must be 200 people inside. Children burnt, beyond recognition. There are corpses, just corpses inside. They can't pull them out, not even with helicopters, special forces. And the mafia bosses just putting money into their pockets. Goddamn money.
Grief turned to anger among families waiting for news at Kashani's hospital. What if the Prime Minister's child had died, this woman shouts. The authorities claim the club was at double its capacity and amid allegations of bribery and corruption, said 15 people have been detained.
We have already detained persons related to the case. I want to assure the Macedonian public that this case will be determined with the exact answer with names and surnames.
A fire that has claimed scores of young lives has devastated a community and a young nation, coming to terms with the worst disaster in its short independent history. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Back here now, and with just days to go until the government unveils its plans for welfare reform, the Health Secretary denied today that there'd been a cabinet row over plans to cut some benefits. It follows reports of a backlash from some Labour MPs over the idea of freezing payments. But speaking on Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips, Wes Streeting said the current welfare system was unsustainable. Our political correspondent Liz Bates reports.
Is there unhappiness at the top of government? The Health Secretary's expression this morning suggests so. Wes Streeting forced to defend cuts to the welfare bill, some of which may end up being scrapped despite never actually being announced.
We've now got 1 in 8 young people in this country out of work. 1,000 people every day are signing on to personal independence payments. 1,000 a day. That's, over the course of a year, size of the city of Manchester.
The Conservatives say the government just needs to get on with it.
There was more to do, and we had a plan at the election to do so. Labour are coming to this too late, without a plan. They're clearly divided on it, and that is not what our welfare system needs.
Westminster has been waiting for the details of big cuts to welfare spending. They were expected last week, but then there were the beginnings of a big rebellion. In a meeting, Cabinet Ministers were openly voicing their concerns. Labour MPs had to be hauled into Number 10 to try to get them on side. And behind the scenes, divisions, indecision and delay. This is where pressure to cut is coming from. The Chancellor needs to find savings to meet her strict fiscal rules, and the ballooning welfare bill is in her sights. Total welfare spending in 2023 to 24 was about £296 billion. At the end of the decade, it's forecast to reach almost £378 billion. The government aims to save around £5 billion by freezing and tightening the rules around the personal independence payment, which is claimed by 3.6 million people. Campaigner Steve Morris is one of those 3.6 million PIP claimants, a payment of up to £9,000 a year for people with long-term physical and mental health conditions. He says freezing it at the current level would make his life much harder.
I'm deafblind. PIP makes a huge difference to my life. It enables me to afford some of the additional costs that are associated with my disability. For so many disabled people, benefits are a lifeline. So to hear that that lifeline might be taken away or severely restricted is hugely, it's hugely concerning.
Back in Westminster, with a government determined to cut public spending, but many Labour MPs prepared to rebel for the first time, the scene is set for a showdown.
Well, Liz joins us live from Westminster now, so difficult decisions clearly to come, Liz, and controversial comments by the Health Secretary about the overdiagnosis of mental health conditions do seem to have added to concerns.
Yeah, that was an interesting comment, I thought, from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, this morning. We have become used to him taking on the medical establishment, if you like, but those comments, I think, did concern especially some mental health campaigners, and I think will concern some Labour MPs, because, of course, one of the big promises during the general election, among many, from Sir Keir Starmer, was that mental health would be given parity within the NHS under his government. So I think there will be questions asked about that, alongside what we have seen bubbling under the surface now for a few weeks, a row brewing over these potential mental health cuts. Sir Keir Starmer has had his attention on global politics for the past few weeks. He will have to turn his attention to this domestically this week, because it is going to come to a head. We were expecting the detailed plans last week. The strength of feeling among Labour backbenchers, right from just ordinary Labour MPs right up to cabinet level, I think took Number 10 by surprise. We've seen hasty behind-the-scenes action, if you like, over the past few days, we still don't really have a sense of where things are heading, but it does seem like maybe there could be a bit of softening around this policy, particularly on the personal independence payment, but we will see that all play out over the next few weeks. There will be a lot of pressure coming from the Treasury, from Rachel Reeves as the Chancellor. She is looking ahead to the spending review. She has asked all departments that are not protected to find big savings. Will she want to make an exception for the welfare department so close to the spending review? I think that's very unlikely. So there will be lots of horse trading, lots of discussion going on over this issue. This will be something for Sir Keir Starmer to really take on this week. Will he back down, or will he push ahead with these controversial cuts and take the political consequences?
We'll watch out for more, certainly. Liz, thank you. Now, Newcastle United fans are celebrating tonight after the club won its first major trophy for 70 years. Newcastle beat Liverpool 2-1 in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley. In a moment, we'll be live in Newcastle to hear how the Toon Army has been celebrating. But first, this report from Matthew Thompson.
Absolutely batter Liverpool.
This is the moment Newcastle United ended a 70-year wait for a major trophy. And this is what it meant.
I'm 50-year-old. I've just turned 50. I got some crying.
The whole city's together. We're one, you know, and we all support them, win or lose. But to win this is everything.
Every fan in here, every fan who supports Newcastle around the world will be absolutely buzzing with this result in here. Absolutely buzzing.
And they did it in some style. Up against league leaders Liverpool, on the day, Newcastle were the better side. A first goal from local boy Dan Byrne sent fans into raptures.
For the first time in a Geordie generation!
The moment caught live on air by Sky's Katie Barnfield.
Memento lifted it in and Murphy is back stick inside!
A second from star striker Alexander Isak put them on the edge of glory.
Now they're believing!
But not before a nervy finish after Liverpool clawed one back in stoppage time.
At last!
And for manager Eddie Howe, history. What odds now on a statue?
Newcastle United are winners!
We just knew what was at stake today. For all the people here, all the people back in Newcastle, we just wanted to do them proud. We were desperate to try and win the trophy after all the years of hurt, and I'm so pleased, not just with the result, but the performance. I thought we deserved the win today.
Tens of thousands made the journey from Newcastle down to London, and they made their voices heard. It's hard to put into words what it means for these fans. Newcastle is a football city. Newcastle United are one of the most passionately followed clubs in the country. And finally, after 70 years, after generations of heartbreak, the Toon Army finally have something to celebrate. And celebrate they will. Long into the night, and doubtless long into the morning and beyond. Matthew Thompson, Sky News, Wembley.
Well, we saw her in that report. Sky's North of England correspondent Katie Barnfield, who joins us live from Newcastle. I'm surprised you've got eardrums left, Katie, but there we are. A decades-long wait leading to a night or three of celebration there.
Absolutely. I mean, it has been an electric atmosphere here in Newcastle this evening. We're right outside St James's Park at the moment, the home of Newcastle Football Club. Over the past couple of hours, since that final whistle blew, fans have been funneling out of the bars and the pubs where they watched that nail-biting final and onto the streets here for a party. We've had car horns blaring, chanting, singing, dancing in the streets, and that's only going to continue. As the night goes on, you can hear some of the fans behind me right now. We spent most of the day, of course, in that fan zone at St James's Stack, just round the corner from here, and it was that moment when Dan Byrne put in that goal just before half-time, when the roof absolutely came off. I think that was the moment when people really started to believe that they might just have done it, secured victory in the Carabao Cup against Liverpool, their first major domestic trophy in 70 years. But I was speaking to many of the fans and they said it was never in doubt. They said the club had the determination to do it. They've had the whole city behind them. Yeah, the atmosphere here has just been incredible. There are more than a few pints being drunk tonight. Plenty of them went all over me before when I was in the fan zone, and there will be plenty of sore heads as well, no doubt, tomorrow.
Katie, live for us there at St James's Park. Thank you. Now, the Vatican has released a new image of the Pope, the first of the pontiffs seen since his health crisis began 5 weeks ago. It comes after the Pope said in a new message today that he is facing a period of trial. Our correspondent Lisa Holland reports now from the Vatican.
Taken from behind and sitting in a wheelchair, Pope Francis is pictured celebrating Mass in hospital. We can't really see the Pope's face, but it's clear that he isn't on oxygen, although we don't know how long he's able to last without any kind of support for his breathing. Since the Pope was hospitalised on February the 14th, there have been only messages and an audio recording until now. People will be poring over this photograph, analysing the Pope's health. But for the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, they'll simply be delighted to see an image of Pope Francis for the first time in more than a month.
Papa Francesco! Papa Francesco!
Hours before the photograph was released, there had been a rumour that the Pope might appear at a window at the Gemelli Hospital. A crowd of around 100 children from various Vatican charities had planned to visit the Pope to wish him well.
We really missed him, and also the children are saying that they miss his words and his presence in our lives.
So what would it mean to you to see the Pope today?
We would be happy to see that he's doing well, and also as a sign of friendship.
But with all eyes on the windows of the Gemelli, in the event there was disappointment. Instead, the Pope, who's being treated for pneumonia in both lungs and struggling to breathe, thanked people in a written message via his Sunday Angelus address. I am sharing these thoughts with you, he wrote, while I am facing a period of trial, and I join with so many brothers and sisters who are sick, fragile at this time like me. I know that many children are praying for me. Some of them came here to Gemelli as a sign of closeness. Thank you, dearest children. After 31 days in hospital, an image of Pope Francis, but there's no indication from the Vatican of any plans for him to leave. Lisa Holland, Sky News, Vatican City.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has replaced the head of the Ukrainian army after just over a year in the role. The leadership shake-up comes as Ukraine looks to restructure and strengthen its military amid ongoing combat in Russia's Kursk region, where Ukrainian troops have been involved in 8 clashes with Russian forces today. Ukraine is also under increasing pressure in its eastern Donetsk region. Well, Donald Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, says the US president and Vladimir Putin are expected to speak this week as the United States tries to broker a ceasefire in Ukraine. It would be the second known call between the two leaders since Mr. Trump returned to the White House in January. At least 36 people have died across 7 states in the US after a severe weather system swept across the south and Midwest of the country. Violent tornadoes and high winds have destroyed properties, while a blinding dust storm caused a 50-vehicle pileup in Kansas, killing 8 people. Astronauts Butch Wilmar and Sonny Williams were only supposed to be at the International Space Station for 8 days, but having ended up spending 9 months there. Various attempts to bring them home have been unsuccessful, but earlier today, their means of returning to Earth arrived in the form of a SpaceX capsule. Here's Alice Porter with more.
It seems like we do have the first Crew 10.
They've been a world away from each other.
Onishi, the first Crew 10 astronaut through the hatch.
Now, after 9 months, finally reunited. The new crew of 4 astronauts are excited to check in. So Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams can finally check out.
I cannot tell you the immense joy of our crew when we looked out the window and we saw the space station for the first time. Returning for a couple of people, very first time for a couple of people. And let me tell you, that is such an amazing journey. You can hardly even put it into words. The ride up on the Falcon 9, orbiting the Earth for the last couple of days, it's been absolutely incredible.
3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
The replacement crew arrived 24 hours after lifting off from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Elon Musk's SpaceX rockets. But it was last June that Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore docked at the International Space Station. It was the first crewed test flight of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, but technical problems thwarted their return. Back on planet Earth, and Donald Trump accused President Biden of abandoning the crew. But the astronauts said they felt committed, not stranded, and have clearly made the most of their extended time up there. With 9 spacewalks, Sonny Williams sets a new female record, and they've been conducting vital research. Butch and Sonny, alongside their 2 ISS colleagues, should then depart on Wednesday in SpaceX's Dragon capsule, returning home at last. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Let's get the sport now. Here's David.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I remember when I first went on trial at under 9, I just couldn't concentrate. There'd be like games going on and I'd be looking over there. I just went off and played club football for a while, went back at under 11s, under 12s, and yeah, I had a lot of ups and downs. There was times where I was 16, you know, when you want to go out and stuff like that, and that's when you truly have to make sacrifices that I found it really difficult. Once I got my feet on the ground and worked hard, then yeah, the journey through the youth team was much easier.
You spent time on loan at Weston-super-Mare. Did the progression from there always seem straightforward?
I always take things, you know, day by day and not look too far ahead. So I was just focusing on progressing and just trying to cement myself in the first team because I didn't see myself as a first team player then. Yeah, I was just trying to focus on playing, you know, a lot of games and improving and then see where that took me.
And then the moves came, of course, Brentford first and then Aston Villa.
I can remember Brentford, they wanted me the season before, but they said I'd be going into the B team and I didn't want to do that, so I played another full season, got another 30, 40 games under my belt and then went to Brentford and I felt like I was in a much better position. It worked out really well. I think just appreciating the little things is what's helped me. If you can score goals, and you can score goals in any league, and then I think, you know, just keep working hard and just believing in yourself, because if you have that belief, then that's the most important thing. And football changes so quickly, so you need that little bit of luck, but if you work hard, then there's no way that you can't succeed, and you may get that little break that can, you know, get you a move, and it goes on from there.
Loan moves down the pyramid can be crucial for the development of academy players. Look at Harry Kane and his journey to becoming England's record goalscorer. And so many of the top players follow the same path.
Them loan moves weren't to get you out the building for no reason, to get you away from the place. They were to become a Premier League goalkeeper. If you can get out on loan and play the men's game, you know, you'll learn a lot more about yourself, the toughness of it, that winning mentality as well. I learned so much from my first move to Dalton to my last loan move at Preston.
The loans have been phenomenal, from obviously non-league all the way through the leagues, League 2, League 1, Championship, and then into the Premier League. So I've sort of played every level of football, and it's all different. The pyramid's different, the league's different.
I felt like I needed to play. I needed first team exposure. I know I was young, I was only 18, but I definitely needed it. I think when you're young, it doesn't matter, I suppose, what level you play at or what team as such, as long as you're getting games and minutes in and they help you kick on and go to the next level, and that's what I did. And not everything went perfect, but that's the whole part of it. That's the whole point.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, it's over 40 years since British forces fought to retake the Falkland Islands, but Argentina has never given up its claim over the UK overseas territory. The Argentine president, a close ally of Donald Trump, is determined to get the islands back. And with defence priorities shifting in Europe, some islanders are concerned that their desire to remain British could be at risk. Tom Clark reports now from the Falklands.
It's more than 40 years since the Falklands War. Evidence of the brief but bloody campaign by British forces to retake the islands from Argentina is rusting away on the hills around the capital, Port Stanley. But memories of the conflict don't fade.
We've been taken over, the radio station, as expected, by the Argentine invasion force. If you take the gun out of my back, I'm going to transmit that news. If you take the gun away. But I'm not speaking with a gun in my back.
That's the voice of Patrick Watts, who was broadcasting from Falklands Radio as Argentine soldiers burst into the studio on the 2nd of April 1982.
These guys, you know, are coming into the radio station, and like my radio station, and I say to them, you can't come in here with guns because you don't bring guns into a radio station. Not in my radio station. Take them out. And the officer in charge actually can be heard telling them to take the guns out and put them in the passage.
That calm defiance has defined this British overseas territory since. But it's a UK military presence that reminds Argentina little more than 200 miles away not to exercise its continued claim over the Falklands. That Guardian, though, is more than 7,000 miles away in a world newly dominated by strong men with territorial ambitions. Walking through this landscape, you get a sense of how tough the conditions were for those who fought in the Falklands conflict, but also a sense of how remote, and to an outsider at least, how inhospitable these islands seem. And with rapidly shifting defence priorities back in Europe, it's reasonable to ask whether the people of the Falkland Islands feel less secure about their future than they have done for the last 40 years. Though the islanders are ever mindful of their neighbour, Britain had their back once before, and they're confident that won't change.
The Falklands have always been a little rock of democracy and stability in what is otherwise a pretty volatile region, and the Argentine presence is always there. Does it preoccupy our minds, you know, every day? I would say no, but we do watch what's happening very closely. I think the way the world is changing absolutely has to give us all concern, but I think we are really secure in the commitment of the British government.
Argentina's president, Javier Milei, an ally of Donald Trump, has said he will not relinquish their claim to sovereignty over the Falklands, but nor will he seek conflict with the UK. People here hope their desire to remain British will be respected, however far away they are in an increasingly uncertain world. Tom Clark, Sky News, the Falkland Islands.
Well, early this month, Syria suffered its worst bloodshed since Bashar al-Assad was toppled from power, with more than 1,000 people reportedly killed in violence that swept the coastal region. The violence has pitted the Islamist-led government security forces against fighters from Assad's Alawite minority. Well, this week on Sky News, we'll have a series of special reports from the region.
The tension had been growing for weeks, but the sudden upsurge in violence here has sent shockwaves through Syria and indeed the rest of the world.
Well, our chief correspondent Stuart Ramsey and our special correspondent Alex Crawford will have a series of reports from Syria that is starting tomorrow on Sky News. Well, that was News at 10. Coming up, we will take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the broadcaster and commentator, Duncan Barks, and the barrister and former government minister, Anna Soubry. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Guardian. Its headline, anger growing over Starmer's £675 a month disability cuts. More on that to come.
Once almost lost, these denizens of the deep are back.
The problem for these whales is global warming.
Water temperatures are rising.
We're worried that the animals are actually starting to starve.
Deadly and outdated. What do you think